Good day. We continue with our daily lectionary for the Tuesday after the fifth Sunday in Lent, which leads us to Mark chapter 14, verses 53 to 65. It's a long reading, so I'll go ahead and get started. They took Jesus to the high priest, and all the chief priests, elders, and teachers of the law came together. Peter followed him at a distance, right into the courtyard of the high priest. There he sat with the guards and warmed himself at the fire. The chief priests and the whole Sanhedrin were looking for evidence against Jesus so that they could put him to death, but they did not find any. Many testified falsely against him, but their statements did not agree. Then some stood up and gave this false testimony against him. We heard him say, "I will destroy the man-made temple, and in 3 days will build another, not made by man." Yet even then their testimony did not agree. Then the high priest stood up before them and asked Jesus, "Are you not going to answer? What is this testimony that these men are bringing against you?" But Jesus remained silent and gave no answer. Again the high priest asked him, "Are you the Christ, the Son of the Blessed One?" "I am," said Jesus. "And you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven." The high priest tore his clothes. "Why do we need any more witnesses?" he asked. "You have heard the blasphemy. What do you think?" They all condemned him as worthy of death. Then some began to spit at him. They blindfolded him, struck him with their fists, and said, "Prophesy." And the guards took him and beat him. So imagine when you hear this passage, there are many emotions that arise in you, particularly if you are a baptized child of God. I always find myself in this situation believing that I would have rushed to Jesus' defense. But the fact of the matter is, I probably would have been no better than Peter, who kept his distance, warmed himself by the fire, and didn't get too close to Jesus for certain. He did not want to be associated with him because of the risk, as we will know, and Jesus would tell Peter that he's going to deny him. And so it's interesting as we hear some words and prophecies fulfilled from Isaiah 53 at the beginning that Jesus doesn't even answer for himself and has no need, really. I mean, he is completely blameless, righteous. He's a spotless Lamb of God who's going to be the sacrifice. And really, when you're righteous, there's not really anything that you have to say because you're perfect and you're right and you're sinless, which is the case for Jesus. But Jesus will tell them who he is and how they will see him at the right hand of God. That's after he finishes his work of dying on the cross and rising from the dead. He will ascend to the right hand of God. And they will see him coming on the clouds of heaven. He will come and descend just in the way that they saw him ascend on the day of his ascension. And so we hear Jesus not only coming to offer his life, but he's going to come as the judge on the last day. And sadly, these priests would continue to reject who he is and who he was. But let's also remember the disciples didn't even really recognize and understand fully who he was until his resurrection. It's not until then that Peter becomes a different man. It's not until then that the disciples are willing to become martyrs on behalf of Christ. And so the resurrection does change things. And so let's keep that in mind and remember that at this point, he's a great rabbi who has said some wonderful things and certainly has done some miraculous things, but their blindedness and their lack of faith and trust has not enabled them to see Jesus as the Son of Man, as the Son of God who has come into the world to save sinners. But that great work of Jesus is just around the corner.